Here we are again with Lucky Tackle Box. I'm your host, Travis Moran, and today we're talking secondary points. No matter if it's pre-spawn, spawn, all the way through to post-spawn, these bass use secondary points for multiple reasons. The spotted bass and smallmouth, they'll actually use these secondary points to feed up on and then actually spawn on. But the largemouth use the secondary points going into the back of the coves to transition and feed up until they get to the backs to do their spawn. Then all three species will go back out to these secondary points to recover after the spawn and then fatten back up. So today we're gonna break down two different things. Number one, how to identify secondary points. And then number two, how to fish them efficiently. So that's why we're gonna use RAW Outdoors 3-inch multi-jointed live action swim bait to pull this thing across these secondary points and get some great action out of these hungry bass. So let's break down this technique, starting with rigging. This bait's good to go right out of the box. So I just tie up a Palomar knot on 8 to 10 pound Seaguar mono or fluorocarbon, and then I pair that up with a medium speed gear ratio, like Daiwa's 6.3 to 1 Tatula. And lastly, I pair that up on a nice cranking stick, like this Castaway 7-foot cranking rod. I need enough backbone to really huck this bait across these different secondary points, but I want that soft tip to get the action out of the bait and a good bend to be able to fight those fish in. Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, yes, baby. On the pause. On the pause. They just needed that thing. They just needed that thing hesitating even more. Come on in, baby. There we go. There we go. There's a largemouth just sitting right on that point. Retrieval. Okay, guys, we're mimicking a sunfish with this, right? We got that realistic look. This is supposed to be a bluegill or a different kind of, a little red ear, some kind of sunfish. Now, a lot of people will see the action of this bait and they'll want to just do a nice slow reel like this all the way in. Now, the reality is you'll probably catch some fish doing this because it's a great lure and it's gonna work. However, if you really want to get down to what panfish really, how they actually really swim and how they really are in the water, take a while sometime and actually look around the docks and watch how these things move around. And what they do is they actually have real deliberate movements. What they do is they'll just kind of dart, stop, stop. And that's what I want to try to mimic with this bait, is I'll just make a couple of turns of the handle so I get that swimming action, then I let that bait sit. Move it more, move it a little bit more, let it sit. And what I'm trying to do is, I just got hammered. Oh man, a big old bass just swam off. Are you kidding me? Guys, that's what we're trying to do here. These fish, they're used to seeing these fish dart, and stop, okay? And that's gonna be the difference between you catching a few fish and catching some seriously great fish on these secondary points, is knowing how to mimic what these fish are looking for. Another cool thing is this bait has a slow sink, but it's nice and even. So if you're fishing, if you're coming off the side of the point or anything like that, you can give this bait a little bit longer pause and let that bait just sink down. What it looks like is it's a little panfish that maybe is nervous. It got out in open water, slowly trying to sink down, and that becomes an easy target for these big old bass. All right, next, obviously we have location. This bait can be used anywhere you see sunfish, right? Around docks, around tule lines, anywhere you're seeing, things that look like this lure, there's gonna be bass nearby looking to eat something like that. So, but when it comes to the spawning time of the year and then spring, I'm all about these secondary points and throwing these little swim baits over these secondary points for these real active, aggressive bass. All right, guys, secondary points. Basically, secondary points are anything inside of a primary point. So those main lake points are the ones that stick out of the main lake, and then everything as you go back into that cove are gonna be secondary points. But when I move up to a secondary point, I've got 3 different ways that I fish it. First, especially if there is wind, I will start downwind from the point, and I'll cast over the point and bring this bait from shallow to deep. So that these fish that are pointing into the wind, waiting for different bait and stuff to come over, they'll have a perfect opportunity to strike this bait. And that's gonna be what they're looking for as well. You always want to, whenever possible, you want to put a bait in the strike zone where the fish are looking to feed. Next, I'll move over to the front of that point and I'll make casts at different angles around the front. A lot of times, especially when there's no wind or anything like that, these fish will move off these points and just sit there and suspend. They're not going to be too active, but with a bait like this that you can really get that lifelike action and then pause, you can really get some of these more lethargic fish to actually act up and go for this bait. Lastly, I'll move around to the windward side of the island. So the island, or the point that's actually getting the wind. And what happens in the wind is it'll move up little plankton and stuff like that that these smaller fish feed on. And so the smaller fish will move up shallow, feeding on all this stuff, and these bass will sit and suspend, and they'll wait for bait, they'll wait for some bigger bait coming out, and that's when they'll strike. So what I do is I go upwind, I cast down to the little point, and I'll bring this bait off into open water and then give it nice long pauses because I want that bait coming down. And you'd be amazed at how aggressive these fish and how active these fish can get with a little bit of breeze. The reality is, because this bait has such great action in the water and realistic looks, you're gonna get fish no matter how you fish it or where you fish it. But by making little adjustments, like just doing quick little movements with the bait, and also focusing in the springtime on these secondary points, you can really maximize your time out of the water and really surprise yourself at how aggressive these fish can really get this time of the year. Anyway, guys, I'm Travis with Lucky Tackle Box. If you enjoyed the video, give us that thumbs up and make sure you leave a comment. Also, if you want to know any more about the products that we're using in this video, check the description box below for some links.